All right. Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today in the EduChat series. So, wow, time has been flying very fast. So, we have right now coming on to the seventh EduChat series. So, today we will have a very interesting topic that we will be discussing with, and our next speaker for today will be a very interesting speaker that we have in comparison with all the past speakers that we have been discussing with. So in the EduChat series, we will basically be speaking with different educators from various different backgrounds, speaking on different education solutions, ideas, as well as strategies. So in today, we will be discussing upon a very interesting topic that many of you have not necessarily been aware of it, but today, hopefully, we would be able to have much more of a clarity with regards to the topic that we're discussing today. So, topic for today, we will be discussing more about gifted child, right? If you're a teacher or a parent that have been working with a gifted child, you might know what we are talking about. But for those of you who are not aware of it, what is a gifted child, right? And how do we work with them? What are the traits that a gifted child actually has? And how can you work well together with a gifted child in order to have much more of a potential to bring out the most out of them and to have a successful future in working together with them as well? So, joining us today will be Dr. Inderbir Sandhu. So, Dr. Inderbir Sandhu, I've been actually in touch with her for the past few days, and we have been discussing a lot about education, and not only education with regards towards a gifted child as well. So, in my conversation with her, she has been very fluently explaining to me on the different aspects of a gifted child. And a little bit about Dr. Inderbir. She's actually an established academician, psychologist, and a published author with a PhD in psychology from the University of Cambridge, UK. So, Dr. Sandhu has been working with individuals of high abilities since 1996 and previously worked with University Putra Malaysia, University of Cambridge, National University of Singapore in California, and Singapore as well. And currently with the Singapore University of Social Science, right? And she's the ex vice president and current advisor for the National Association for Gifted Children, right? And her consultancy, she has actually a consultancy company called MindPath Consulting Services and provides training and consulting services for the intelligence IQ, as we are as common used to refer to it as IQ, in terms of giftedness, creativity, critical thinking, and positive psychology for educators, parents, students, and the corporate world. So she is actually a multilingual speaker, and Dr. Sandhu has conducted workshops in Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, India, and the Middle East as well. So, bringing today recently, she has just authored a very interesting book, and the title of the book is "The Secrets to Raising a Smarter Child," and available on Amazon worldwide in both paperback and Kindle version. So, we'll talk more about the book as well as all of the discussion about gifted children, all of the information. So, if you are a parent or teacher out there, please do stay tuned and. Without further ado, I would like to invite Dr. Inderbir Sandhu to come up on stage to have a word with us on this. So, welcome, Dr. Inderbir.
Hello, thank you, Jay. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for making time to be here.
Right. So, all of you that are in on the live session right now, please do comment one, or if you have any questions for Dr. Inderbir, please do comment on the comments down below so that we would be able to have a conversation together with you with regards to the topic that we are discussing today. So, Dr. Inderbir, before we step in into the topic that we're about to have a chat with regards to gifted children. So, a little bit background. Could you introduce yourself to those of you who haven't heard of you? Some works that you have currently been running through, and as well as some of what you are currently doing during MCO.
I think you've mentioned it all. Well, actually, during MCO, I mean, it has been circuit breaker here because I'm in Singapore. Um, the only thing I could do uh, virtual university classes and some virtual workshop. I was not able to see any children. I wasn't able to do a lot of testing because we because of the restrictions we have during this period. So that's about all I've been doing. And this thing came along, and I thought, yes, why not? Before I get really busy. So yes, I'm doing. I've been doing the same thing I've been doing. I'm planning to write. Actually, I have started to write another book, but it's going to take some time because even publishers are not ready to publish at this point in time. So let's see how things go. I go with the flow.
Right. So I've been seeing through that you are actually in the education industry for the past many years, since 1996. And
Right.
wow, it's been a long way. So could you briefly run us through with some of the key highlights or the key topics in education that you have been working with for the past many years to come?
Actually, I my first degree was not, I didn't do psychology as a first degree. You'd be really surprised that my first degree, which I did in university, then it was Pertanian, then University Pertanian Malaysia.
Oh,
I
okay.
actually, yeah, I actually did in Malay studies, Malay language, the teaching of Malay language as a first language, and somehow, I did my masters in that as well, and somehow I stumbled upon gifted education while reading some books in the library, and I just felt that this is answering a lot of questions and maybe grievances that I had along the way. So I decided to get much deeper into this, and that was how it started. And I got a scholarship to move on to Cambridge, and I had to do an MPhil there, which I did quite well. So I got promoted to a PhD, and here I am. Here
Right.
I am
So
doing what I'm really passionate about.
yeah, so looking on towards this, right? With you're currently working with children, right? Is
Yes,
that your main focus as of this moment?
yes, that and actually teachers as well. I do a lot of teacher training because with children I do individually teacher training, of course, workshops with schools and sometimes corporate anything in education in relation to psychology. And because I don't only do gifted education, I also do creativity, critical thinking, and positive psychology is my latest interest, which I also teach at the university. So these are things that I am personally very interested in, very passionate, and I feel that it can be quite helpful.
Right. Okay. So just to set the stage for the audiences as well as for myself, looking into gifted education, right? Could you give us a sort of like an introduction or background on what is gifted education? How prevalent is it in the current situation over in Malaysia as well as in Singapore as well?
Well, in Singapore, actually, they're quite established. I think gifted education started here in the 80s, and we've got gifted education programs, screening in primary three, and it goes on. And there are special classes for students who qualify. There is an aptitude test that you have to take to qualify for the classes. And theoretically, it's excellent. The program is very good in Singapore. Um, Practically, maybe some loopholes here and there. I think eventually when you make it all about getting good grades alone, then I think that's where the problem comes. So as in for Malaysia, I think there's a lot of up and downs. Unfortunately, if I were in Malaysia, I think I would have done something about it because I actually, before leaving UPM, I left UPM because I got married, not because I wanted to. And my husband was working in the States at that time, so I went along with him. So the problem is that the program did not continue. I came up with the whole curriculum, 3 credit paper, which was actually approved by the Senate, but unfortunately, it was not continued. My plan was actually to have every teacher in Malaysia have at least one subject during teacher training, which relates to gifted children. So, a lot of them know about special children. That is, one extreme of it. Gifted children come under special children, but there's very little attention given to them. I mean, I agree that the numbers are not large, and maybe, probably, I don't know, the resources are limited. But this group, this is the group which will they're actually assets for the country, and they will make the country really proud. So I think we should pay attention to this group. And
Right.
trust me, some of them breathe on their own, but most of them do not. They need help, and they can be even better if we identify them and if we help them. So if you ask me about Malaysia, there is some way to go in this area.
Right. So for myself, right, as you know, we are working with many schools in Malaysia. So the first time when I hear about the term gifted child was
Mhm.
back probably 6, 7 years ago when I was working with a school. And there was this little kid that was profusely drawing, and he's so talented in terms of how he communicate with us. And as
Right.
I was discussing with the teacher, and I was saying, wow, this kid is really talented. And the teacher actually told us that, yeah, he's gifted, right? So,
Wow. They
so at
knew
the
that.
time, yeah, and at the time I was saying, so what do you mean by gifted? Oh, he's just very fast in absorbing information and
Mhm.
going through all the studies. He's like light years ahead with
Right. That's exactly what it is.
yeah, right.
Mhm.
So I guess in pop culture, when we look at the Big Bang Theory, then we look at Sheldon Cooper and the abilities
Yes,
that they're able
yes.
to do with that. Yeah,
There's so many around, actually.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So just a little bit about the traits of a gifted child, right? From your perspective and as well as from your experience working with gifted child,
Right.
what are
Let me first, I think I need to first define what,
yes,
I think maybe some of our audience may not know what it actually is, what gifted children actually are.
yeah,
Now, universally, we've got the universal definition where gifted children are children who actually perform, or they have the ability or potential to perform at a level significantly beyond their chronological age peer. Now, when we say chronological age, is your birth age. Okay, mental age is your IQ age. So chronological age is your age, your birth age, in your birth cert. And their unique abilities require special provision, social, emotional support from community, and of course in the educational context. Now they require sufficient access to appropriate learning opportunities, which is, for example, in maybe in a country like Malaysia, it may be lacking in most schools, but they need that to realize their potential. They can also be found. You will also see that there are some children who actually have disorders at the same time they are gifted. So these children need support, as within the special education context. They would need support for being gifted and for having maybe a disorder. It can be um, within the autism spectrum, dyslexia, ADHD, and as such.
right. So let's say if I'm a teacher or I'm a parent, right? So how
Mhm.
do I spot if a certain child or if my child is a gifted child in per se? So looking through the lens of
That's right.
yeah.
Mhm.
So how do we actually spot a gifted children?
Well, again, universally, there will be some common traits that they share that actually makes them different from other children. Uh, Please note that the list is not going to be exhaustive. Some may have it, some may not have it, and nobody has all of it. Okay, so there is no universally accepted traits. Where you can tell for sure just by just through a checklist, you can tell for sure this child may be gifted. Then again, basically what I say is there's no magic checklist for traits in giftedness. However, if a good number of gifted children, they do share common traits, which if teachers, I think this is geared toward teachers. So if
Right.
teachers have a checklist of these traits, Now, it will be a good place to start the initial awareness and identification process. Okay, so one of the things that actually sets them apart is you'll find that they are very fast and efficient learners. Basically, they have the ability to quickly absorb learning, ability to pick up skills and ideas. So they do this quite quickly. So they're able to make connections very quickly. You will find that they may be highly focused on areas of interest, and if when they're really interested in something, they actually tend to independently seek information in these areas. You don't really have to push them. They do it quite independently. And then they are highly curious. They keep asking questions, and the questions are not just why is this, and something totally different. Why is that? It's actually insightful question which shows advanced understanding. And they're not trying to annoy you as teachers or parents, but they really need to know. You can tell that they have the desire for reasoning, for reason and understanding. Now, they won't be satisfied with the answer, like because I said so, because the book says so. They're not going to be happy with that. You have to go further. And you will also find that the most gifted students, not all, most of them, okay, are avid readers. They have the tendency to read often on their own. Again, you don't really need to push them to read, and some of them actually prefer reading to more physical activities. And they have, we call them storehouse of information. They've got this rich fund of knowledge. They know more about the world around them than we actually expect them to, at a rather young age. And because they have so much knowledge, at the same time they have excellent memory. They can easily recall what they have heard, they've seen, learned, or experienced. They learn quickly and easily, and they remember what they learn. Okay, for example, if you tell them a bedtime story and you kind of miss one part, they'll quickly notice that you omit even a word in the story. Okay, these are for very young children, of course, so you try that and see. And as I mentioned earlier, they're very independent. They don't require a lot of direction and instruction starting a new activity, because it's challenging for them. Once it's challenging, they're happy to do it. They get stimulated. They're very interested in experimenting, like taking things apart and putting them together. They can build something so magnificent, and at the same, then the next moment you see them taking it apart, and you're like, why are you doing that? It's so good. But that's what they do. They're very experimental. They love experimenting. And a good number actually of gifted children, they have early development of speech, usually an average of 2 months earlier than their peers. Around 9 months, you will see them, saying their first few words. I know some of them much earlier than that, but usually this is the average for gifted children. Right. And they have early and advanced development of motor skills involving balance, even coordination, and general movement. In fact, even in some fine motor activities such as assembling small objects, like Legos, transforming toys, and blocks, putting puzzles together, you can see that their fine motor skills are more developed. They're not as clumsy. Okay. Now, having said that, other fine motor skills may not be as advanced. You need to realize that, like in my case, I have a lot of clients telling me that my kid is very intelligent and very smart, very quick, but his or her handwriting is so bad. Why is it like that? So handwriting thing, they say if they can throw, they can hop the ball, and they can play games very well, then why can't they write well? Now, this is more related to a lack of attention to detail or impatience with the slow, tedious, and what we can call boring task of handwriting, because rather than problems with fine motor control. Now, the thing with gifted children is that their mind is working so quickly, it's rapid, it's racing. They are thinking, let's say they want to write something, they're already thinking much ahead. But because that's their age, physically that's all they can do. So it gets very frustrating for them to write. So that is one of the reasons they may not be, they may not have very good handwriting, because they try to do it quite quickly.
Right,
You
right,
also see that they prefer older companion. Now, this is what, earlier I said chronological age. So they prefer companion with similar mental age.
right,
Okay, for
right,
example, a child's chronological age is 9 years old. So but his mental age is about maybe 10 or 12, or, maybe 14. So he will prefer companions that are at a similar mental age. So you
right,
will see that they like to talk to adults.
right.
And of course,
So
they have a very,
like, oh,
yeah,
my friends are they're speaking the language that is too young for me. So I got to go out and speak to
exactly.
adults.
Exactly. It's actually not too young. It's just that, the interest in topics and the conversation, the vocabulary is
Right,
more fitting with someone older. Yeah.
right,
And of course, again, many of them are very creative because they're able to imagine. They've got vivid imagination. Now, in terms of emotions, you will see that their emotions are very, very, very intense. This is something which is I find very common
right,
among gifted children. So they've got heightened sensitivity. They're sensitive towards the feelings of others, sensitive to the expectations of others. They hurt quite easily. And the other thing, they can be quite sensitive, and this you can see when they're very young. Touch and smell, sometimes they just can't stand certain smell. It's like so bad. And I don't know if you realize, when your child is a baby, some of them, they have problems with labels at the back of their clothing. That, I know some parents who keep having to cut, because it's very annoying for them. And also because of that, the texture is also an issue. They just don't like to walk on, let's say, wet grass.
right,
They are
right.
so sensitive. So these are all called heightened sensitivity. They are very sensitive to a lot of things. And we may just say, sometimes we may just tell the kids that, oh, you're just pretending, or, come on, you can. Some of them cannot eat certain things, like the common example is green peas. I don't know why. Some of them just cannot have that. They find it, I don't know, it's probably the texture, right?
Wow,
So, no, we need to listen to them. We need to listen
right.
to them.
Wow,
Yes, I know. And some of them have very high levels of energy, which, because there is so much going on in their brain, so they can be very intense. So we call this psychomotor overexcitability. You probably have to, look up. You can see that they have leadership qualities. They tend to take charge during playtime. You put them in a, with a group, and you see that they tend to want to make decisions. And there is a setback as well, because when they try to do that, they may seem as being bossy, being, they actually want to organize things. But people may say, oh, you're showing off, you're being too bossy, you don't order us around. But they're not. They just want things to get done. They're trying to organize. They can be impatient with others, or even with themselves.
right,
Now,
right,
yeah, because they've always been gifted, so they may not understand why others are not grasping concepts or moving through tasks as easily. Sometimes, you give them group work to do, and someone is slow in the group, especially for the younger ones, of course. So they can't, like, why are you so slow? Why can't you do this? They may have a problem understanding. That is where parents and teachers come in to actually help them to realize that people are different. You will see that they have a lot of concern for social or political problems, or injustice. Now, they gifted children are actually, they most of them, not all, most of them are rule followers. They usually go by the rules, and at a younger age compared to other children. So they are also concerned about fairness. So when you say something, you promise them something, and you don't follow through, for them it is not fair. You have to follow through what you have promised. And they do enjoy being on their own. They enjoy solitary activities, such as you know just reading, daydreaming, observing, or just thinking. Sometimes they just in they just spaced out, they look spaced out, but it's not empty. A lot of things are going on. When
Right.
they are spaced out, it's usually when they in the classroom. If they are spaced out, I think you should not punish them. You need to find out. Maybe lessons
They're
may not be
probably
very challenging.
synthesizing the information in their brains.
That may be one. They may be going further. They're asking questions. Maybe they dare not ask questions, so they're asking here. The other is when they find that the lesson is not very challenging, they tend to think of something else. That's how they stimulate themselves. So usually teachers get very upset, and it's unfortunate. And you will see that some of them actually are very appreciative of nature or art forms, for example painting, sculptures, or music. I know one gifted child who's very interested in music from like then. I mean, this child is now about 9 years old, and he's into like Carpenters, Beatles. Beatles is still new. I mean, Carpenters is I mean, it's amazing, how they can form interest in such music on their own. Okay,
Right.
so just note that not every gifted child is going to show all or even most of these characteristics. Some will show traits that are quite contrary to what you might expect in a gifted child. For example, I did mention they are early speakers. Early. They're avid readers. They read early, which is very common among gifted children. But uh, Einstein actually spoke quite late, and he didn't read till he was 7 years old. So
Right.
there
Right.
are exceptions to the case.
Right.
Gifted children can be as different from one another as they are from the rest of the society.
I
So
see.
those are a few traits teachers and parents can look out for. Yeah.
Right. So in a way, fundamentally, in their brain structure, it's almost like they have like the super ability to input information, and
Yes.
secondly, to be able to make connections and to make
Yes.
meaning out of the world around them.
So they are like sponges. They absorb,
Right.
and they use previous experience and previous learning to make connections. They do
Right.
it very quickly in comparison to a child who may not be in that gifted range. Yeah.
I see. Right. So I guess the common trait, as what I've experienced in some schools, right? So in a class of 40 students, so the teachers might be able to observe that, hey, that one student over there, they seem to be able to grasp everything even before I utter a word. They seem to have already grasped the entire information
Yeah, so
onto the.
that is a child who would need differentiation in education. And you need to pay attention to that child and not hold that child back and make him or her sit and follow through the lessons you are giving for all the other kids.
Right, right. Dr. Inderbir, just want to find out, right? For example, famous people that we usually know. Are there any examples of gifted personalities that we are all aware of that you might be able to give some examples of?
I think there are just too many
Right,
people, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, and Disney,
right,
Walt.
right,
All these, there are just too many of them. Everyone who wins a Nobel Prize, these are all gifted. And even actors, there are some very profound actors, artists. So they're just a lot of them. You see, the numbers between 2 to 5% of any population is gifted, although it may not look a lot, but when you look in the world, these these are actually the numbers are quite large actually. It's whether they are discovered, they are recognized, and they're given the opportunities that for them to shine.
right. Okay. So for those of you who are listening, try. I'm taking a lot of notes over here. So Dr. Inderbir have just shared with us 14 different traits with regards to gifted child.
You
So if you
noted
have
it down.
yeah, and if you have any questions with regards to that, please do comment down below in the comments, and we will try to bring it up to for Dr. Inderbir to have a discussion on towards this. Speaking of which, there's a question over here from Valerie Chong. Thank you, Valerie, for the question. Doctor, Matthews is happy in school, but I'm not sure if he's learning in accordance to his talents. Sometimes he said the subjects are easy, but he enjoys interacting with his friends very well and loves going to school. So, yeah, any comments on that with regards towards Valerie's child over here?
Well, the thing is that he enjoys interacting with his friends, which is excellent because he enjoys going to school, but it seems quite obvious that his ability and the education that is offered is doesn't match, because if it matches, he would not even talk about it. He wouldn't complain about it. So this is something, as a parent, you may need to uh, you may need to look around if there's any help that can be given by the school, if the school is willing to um, you know change or tweak the curriculum a little bit to suit him, if they're able to have a pull out program. Now the problem is when it comes to I'm not sure whether this is in an international school or a local school. Maybe in an international environment, because you pay, you may have more of a say. But I think in mainstream school, it may be a little difficult because there are many students in a classroom, and I'm not sure how much the teacher, because the teacher would have to work quite hard, how much the teacher would want to make that extra effort to help the child. And then again, the teacher may not even have any training, the teacher may not even be aware. So it's not the teacher's fault, actually. When you don't have training, how are you going to help someone when you don't know what to do? So this can be a tricky situation.
Right, right. So, so Valerie, if you have more details with regards to towards Matthias's situation, please do comment down below so we can have much more of a insight with regards to the situation over there. So Dr. Inderbir, what I can see over here, right? It's almost like if we use an analogy of a bodybuilder, right? So this guy, he's able to lift up a 100 kg dumbbell, right? For example. So
Mhm.
if we are giving them too little, let's say for example, just work with 10 kilograms instead of 100 kilograms, then it's definitely going to be way under his ability to perform. So
Absolutely.
would you take that as an analogy whereby we should
Yes,
actually chat with them?
I think that's a very good analogy. It's very interesting that you came up with something like that. I wouldn't have thought about that. That's a very good analogy. The thing is that I mean, you are not the person is not strengthening himself. You're just carrying weights that and you get used to that weight. So what happens is that you just like someone else will catch up with you if they keep practicing, right? So it's like that.
Right, right. So, okay, so we will speak more about the education on how an adult can actually work with a gifted child. But for now, there's quite a number of questions over here from the audiences. So keep it coming. I will try to address all of them as we go on. So from Kamu Sweet, Doctor, my son is tested gifted and he's very bright. He can write articles, example about war very well, well about war. But when the teacher gives him a title to write, for example, about myself, he's not able to write any suggestions that I can help with him. Yeah. Thank you for
Okay,
the
so
question, Kam. Yeah. So, doctor, any comments on that? He is very bright. He can write an article very well, but when
mhm.
it's given by a teacher, then he's not able to.
How old is he?
Yeah. So yeah. So Kam, if you are able to to share
Yeah.
with us the age, yeah, that
Okay.
would be
Now what I can see is that war is something he's interested in. He probably reads a lot of history books, and I think he's an avid reader. To be able to write well, you need to read a lot. So he's probably interested in writing about war. That stimulates him. That makes him excited about what he's doing. But if the teacher gives him something which he may not be very excited about, then he may not be challenged to write. Or there may be another reason, that I'm not very sure. You know, you need to talk to your child and find out, why you need to probe. There may be another reason.
right.
Uh, Check with him. Is it too difficult? Are you not able to write? Or maybe he does not want to write about himself. Maybe he feels that, I don't know, for some reason. I mean, I have to go really deep into this
Okay.
to analyze.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there could be many form of reason why
No,
not.
there can be many reasons, but there is a reason. It is an issue which needs to be, um, you know, you have to find out how to help your child. Yeah.
Okay, to echo upon what Dr. Inderbir has just mentioned, probably is that he's so engrossed in a very certain topic, for example, war, that he's so specialize in that area, whereby he might not be so intrigued or interested in that topic about myself. I'm not sure if regarding to himself, or yeah, it could be a different topic which is not as of interest to him. Would that cause a situation like this whereby
Yes,
he's,
of course, of course.
yeah,
The thing is that gifted children, the child is has been tested gifted. So usually gifted children, they're very passionate about certain things, their areas of interest. And if it's not within their areas of interest, they don't see meaning to doing it. It's like for them, it's meaningless. When it's meaningless, then it's very hard to get them to do it.
right. Okay, it's almost like getting a chef. Okay, could you teach me how to how to let's say, for example, to write a code on computer. So it's like it's two different worlds for them, so it might not be
Exactly.
relevant for his
But
particular.
but you can encourage them by being creative and maybe talking about that topic, getting him to be interested in it. You have to do a lot of probing, and as a parent, you have to be very creative at the same time.
Okay, so Kam just actually replied over here. She's mentioning that
Oh, okay.
her child is 9 years old.
Yeah, I assume your name is very familiar.
Okay,
I think I may know you
right.
anyway.
Okay, so before we move on into more questions like this, right? I guess Dr. Inderbir, you have been working with so many gifted children. So, what are some of the key principles when you are working with a parent as well as working with the gifted child by themselves?
You mean
So in a way, say for example, when you're first being approached by a parent that tells you, "Hey, Dr. Inderbir, I think my child is gifted," right? So how would you normally approach a situation like this?
Well, usually, if they come for an IQ test, so it's a no-brainer. It's very objective, so you go based on the results. But at the same time, there are some children who do not test very well. But you know, I'm able to see from the discrepancies in the results. Some of them may have a learning disability, so you can see that the results are quite skewed, and you can actually tell, and you can also tell by the testing behavior, how the child reacts to testing and how interested or how bored he or she may be. Now the thing about most parents, not all, I mean a good number of parents uh, would like to translate IQ scores to academic grades, which is really not how it should be, because you cannot do that. There are gifted children who do not do well in school at all. It's very, very possible.
Right, right,
Children who does very well is a high achieving child who may or may not be gifted. So, but usually parents, I mean, as parents, we want the best for our children. So obviously, we will try to do anything that we can to help them with their lessons. But what parents need to understand is, with gifted children, um, a lot of pressure may not work very well. You need to understand them well before you kind of push them into doing some things.
right.
Sometimes if they don't want to do it, they just don't want to do it. You may need to look for something else for them to do, because sometimes they can be very stubborn, and if they find that there is no meaning, what they're doing is meaningless, it's not stimulating or challenging them, it's a chore for them to do, then it's going to be quite tricky. Yeah.
Okay. So a couple of questions over here from Chitra Vignesh. So I have a 9-year-old who is underperforming in schools. He just complains that he talks a lot and disturbs the rest. Um, and he also does homework when teachers scold him only. Why does he do that? Well, it reminds me of myself when I was younger. So,
Okay, maybe,
so
maybe you can answer
yeah,
that. Okay,
right,
now most likely he's not interested in what he's doing. So what you need to do is to find out what is being taught in school, and why you may, at 9 years old, you can actually talk to the child, find out from him why is he doing what he's doing. More often than not, when they start disturbing the others, it's because they're trying to stimulate themselves, they're trying to occupy themselves, because you may have a gifted child. Just I'm just saying it as such. I'm not making a diagnosis. Usually gifted children, when they get bored and they don't know what to do, so what they do is they try to get attention from other people. So sometimes they do they get attention from teachers as well. Scolding is a form of gaining attention. And I mean, you're saying that he does his homework. What was that about the homework?
Only when it is
When the
being
teacher
scolded.
Okay. So you see, he's doing it because he's forced to do it. Maybe you should have a look at his homework and, you know, I don't know if you can present it in a more exciting way for him to do. He may be a little more interested in it. What I can see is that there's no interest in what he's doing.
Right,
I don't
right,
think it's that, I mean, but if he's underperforming in school, you really need to find out why. If
right,
he is he really working? If there's no effort put in and he's underperforming, then that's it's quite obvious effort needs to be put in. But
right, right,
if you think that your child is actually very bright and yet he's not performing, then you need to really look. You need to dig deeper to see what the problem may be. One way is actually to speak to the teachers and just find out what the teachers have to say. Yeah.
right, right. So if we put it from a context of a gifted child, they may be too advanced in a way that they feel that the class is too boring for them.
Yeah. If
Similar
the
to what,
child is gifted, yes, that's definitely it.
right,
You know,
right.
this
It's
case
almost
is
like going to a movie theater and the movie is too boring and I got to go out and get some popcorn and go
yes,
walk
to
around.
do something. Yeah. So like gifted children, it's quite common for them to, especially when they are very young, like in kindergarten, it's common for them to uh, distract other students when they are bored themselves. Like I always give this example of a little kid who already knows how to read, and you send him to kindy, and everyone else is just learning alphabets or syllable word syllables, and this child is already reading. So obviously when
Right,
teachers are teaching, what he will do, he might just poke a friend here, throw a pencil there, or run around the class, or just do anything to keep himself stimulated, because they don't know better. They're very young. They don't
right,
have the emotional capacity to understand that this is a classroom and I need to listen. It's just they're doing what they naturally feel like doing. So that
right,
is very high chance that child may be a gifted child.
right.
And
So
in
so
this
Chi-
case,
Chitra,
a lot more
yeah.
probing is required.
Yeah, so Chitra, it helps if you could actually communicate with your children to really find out the deeper reason on why he's actually not performing in school. So
And
hopefully,
teachers
yeah,
as well.
teacher as well. Yeah, right. So speaking of which, Dr. Inderbir, you were mentioning that gifted children have the ability to sponge up information in a very fast pace in that way, right? So I
Mhm.
was recalling one of the story whereby the teacher was trying to teach, for example, sejarah or history in school, and what happens is that, oh, I've actually read the entire book, and I can actually tell you all about the different histories on that. So he's like way advanced
Right.
in comparison with his peers. So question is that, do we feed them with more information, allowing them to consume as much information as possible, especially at a young age? What was your comment on that?
Okay. The you mean you talking you
So let's
asking
say,
what the teacher should do?
yes, yes. Let's say if I'm a parent, let's say if I see that my child has the ability to absorb information like crazy, right? So do I feed him with, or him or her with more information, allowing him to access to more information from encyclopedia? Yeah.
that,
Any
that
comments
is
on that?
the best thing to do. You need to expose the child. So the moment you expose, if you get bored after some time, then that's it. That maybe not an area of passion. But the younger the child is, the more exploration, and the child needs to be exposed to as much material as possible, because you know everything will go in, and that is how the child will realize what his or her passion is. So,
Right.
and as a teacher, if you have a child like that in your class, give that child a chance to say, okay, or if, do you want to share with us? Don't say, okay, now you be the teacher since you know everything. You don't
Wow.
talk to them like that.
That is a
You say,
common
okay,
scenario. Yeah.
yeah, that's a common scenario. You say, would you like to share what you know? And maybe you may need to give the child some deeper work, a project to do individually, because it's going to be a waste of time for the child to be sitting in the class and staring at you. And
Right.
chances are the child is not staring at you, the child is spacing out, tuning out, thinking of something else. Yeah.
Right, right. Okay. So I guess we spoke a lot about, even before this edu chat, we spoke about the balance on how we should provide a child with the proper environment as well as the proper balance in terms of what informations and skills that they should develop. We'll
Mhm.
talk more about that shortly in a while, but because I'm seeing that the questions are piling in over here. Okay, the next question over here from Michelle Hyung. Wow, hi Michelle.
Hi,
Great to see you. So Michelle is one of the speaker from Edu Summit 1 as well. So Michelle's question over here is that how do we help a gifted children to move away from their comfort zone?
well,
Yeah.
give them more challenging tasks. As
Uh,
simple as that. You see, once they are in their comfort zone, you know, if you don't push them, it's like you're holding them back. So you need to give them more challenging work. I'm not talking about extra work, more challenging, something which is more exciting and at the same time, will stimulate their minds. Then, I think that's the best way. Never
right,
allow them to be in their comfort zone, because they can achieve a lot more than what they're doing.
right, right. So
And
I
you
guess
can, in fact, you can ask them, you can ask, what would you like to do? You can find out from them what their interest may be. So, when you get them to do it, they will know that, hey, that was my answer. I said that. So I'm accountable, and okay, let me try.
right, right. So bringing back into the analogy of the bodybuilder, so if you can actually weigh, if you can lift 100 kilograms, so push him towards 110, go to 120.
Yeah,
Uh,
or make it more exciting. Do it in a different way.
right, right.
It'll be more exciting,
Mm,
because okay, that analogy, I mean, like, you can only go to a certain
right,
certain
right,
way. But
right,
yes, don't, because once you start carrying 100 kgs easily, then that's your comfort zone already. So um, it becomes easier and easier for you. So what you need is, you need further challenges.
right, right. I guess also to highlight on that as well, from Dr. Inderbir, like the language on how an adult speaks with a gifted child, right? What kind of words that you would normally use when communicating with the child? For example, if let's say a situation whereby maybe let's take John for example. So John is a gifted child, 9 years old. He's been doing a very great job in completing the assignment. So how would you normally communicate with them? Do you give praise to them? You can do better, or you're doing a great job. How would you normally communicate with them?
I think you should say that. I said that's great. You did a great job. You it's best not to say that. Oh, you are so clever. This is amazing. I think don't go overboard.
Right,
Just that this is a great job, and maybe you try to poke a little, challenge the child a little further. Say, what about Do you think if I gave you something like this, or something, you go a little further on the same topic, basically, more depth. You think you can do this? So that will get them more challenged. So once they are challenged, then they will try to attempt to do it.
right, right. So in
So,
usual case, when I'm sort of like praising a gifted child, right? They are sort of like immune towards praising. They're sort of like, oh, this is something that everyone has been doing. My friends can't do it, but I do it well on a daily basis. Yeah.
exactly. So for them, it's not a big deal. So
Right.
but you have to tell them that it's good. That, yeah, hey, well done. Something like that. But don't overly praise, because they don't buy into it.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
or maybe they get it a lot. So
Yeah.
as parents, as teachers, what or what you can do is, you can actually hug your child.
Uh, right.
The touch communication, communicate with touch, is actually very, very important.
Right.
For teachers, I think, I'm not very sure. I think, okay, for the time being, I know there's no touch.
Right.
But for teachers, especially male, female, female student, a male teacher, maybe
Right.
we got to be a bit careful. But for parents, touch is so important. So all parents out there who are listening, if you don't touch your child, regardless of whether your child is gifted or not, it doesn't matter. The sense of touch is actually a great way to communicate with your child. When I say touch, I don't mean hit. Just Just touch, pat on the back, and touch the shoulder. Hey, really good. Or hug. Those of you who are very affectionate, hug your kid. It means a lot to gifted children because they're very emotional, and for them, it's a big thing. It's a big thing to show that you love them.
Right.
Yeah.
I go on to what you just mentioned. They have very highly sensitive emotion.
Yeah.
They're very highly sensitive emotionally as well.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, okay, next question coming from the audience over here. Putri Rohani Megat. Uh, schools in Malaysia, do they actually have a standard instrument to identify gifted children?
Do schools in Malaysia? Actually, I'm really not very sure. As far as I know, they don't. I know there was a program Permata Pinta, and I believe the test that they use is a good test to identify gifted children, but I don't know what has happened now. Um, I'm actually not very sure what is happening with the in the Malaysian scenario. As far as I know, in mainstream schools, no, they don't have. Yeah,
Right.
so you usually may need to go private, which is actually quite costly, and it's quite sad that some parents can't afford it, and so you don't know. But actually, you don't even need to do testing. Look at the checklist. If you think your child is gifted, maybe you can get some help. Testing is usually to show to the school, or to see if there are any gaps in areas that needs to be enhanced, or needs some help to closer the gaps in education. Yeah.
Right. So speaking of testing, right, Dr. Inderbir, I guess one of the audiences actually mentioned that they actually send their child for testing and his certified gifted child, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
could you walk us through the process on what do they actually do in terms of the testing of to identify a gifted children from this case?
It depends on what tests you do. I mean, there are a few tests available, but the ones that certify them as gifted children are usually standardized tests, which is usually accepted worldwide. And the main ones are the Wechsler's intelligence test and Stanford Binet. These are the main tests. I personally prefer the Wechsler's, and that is the test I use for my clients. And there are basically five categories of testing. The first is verbal comprehension, then visual, spatial, uh, how good you are in your visual, spatial, fluid reasoning, working memory, and processing speed. Processing speed is how quick you process information. And so from that, the results, of course, is not direct. It has to be tabulated, and to find out where the child stands. And from that, you will be able to derive an IQ quotient. It's called a full scale IQ. So from that, if your, like what they say, the magic number is 130. If your child is 130 and above, which means your child is like two standard deviation away from the mean. Someone who is average will be about 100. So if you're 130 and above, you are in the gifted range, and you would need uh, differentiation in education. In most Western countries, especially in the States, in Australia, in UK, above that level, you will be placed in a gifted education program. Yeah.
Okay. So Putri, hopefully that answers this question. So there's no current standard instrument to identify gifted children. For example, Dr. Inderbir, are there any websites or any resources that if a teacher or a parent actually suspect that, okay, my child might be gifted, where can they actually get confirmation on this, or which resources can they actually go on to get information like
Actually, there
this?
are just so many out there.
Right,
You just
right.
have to, set a, checklist for gifted children, and you will come up there. There are so many out there. I personally have given the advice on this website, Brainy Child,
Right.
brainychild.com. It's not my website. I used to give advice internationally. So there are many question and answers still there. This was from 2014 to 2016. I've stopped now. And there are a lot of Q&A which may relate to some parents. So you may want to have a look at that, and I think Jay later maybe you can give that
Yeah.
site.
So
That can be
brainy
quite
child.
helpful. Yeah,
Okay.
brainy-child.com. Yeah,
Okay.
you
Brainy
go to
child.
ask an expert column, and that's where there's just a lot of information there. But it may not be the latest because it started in 2004,
Right.
so
Right.
you may need to check. Yeah.
Okay. Right. Okay. So another question from Valerie Chong over here. Uh, I guess he's attending international school. He's creative and able to read my words, but he couldn't spell. So as a parent, I'm not sure how to request the school to place him in another higher level. Okay. I guess it's your child, and he's is creative, able to read your words, but he couldn't spell. So
Okay,
parent,
that's quite strange. So he's maybe he. How old is he?
yeah, right. So Valerie, if you could actually comment down below how old is your child, that would really help.
Usually, if a child can read words and not spell, that means the child is actually maybe using memory,
Hmm,
maybe
okay,
a memory related thing.
he couldn't spell. Okay, right.
But, oh, okay. Okay, so parent will have to request. Actually, I think it's a good idea to talk to the school and try to find out from the school, why have they not helped him to be able to spell the words out.
Right,
Now,
right,
spelling it isn't everything for a gifted child, and if you ask me, it can be maybe a little boring as well because it's just memory work. But you know, I don't know which level this is, but I think you need to find out from the school why is this happening. I'm I wouldn't be surprised if there may be an underlying issue, maybe a learning issue, which you may need to, there may need to be some kind of intervention.
right. So off the bat, we might not be able to immediately categorize him as
No,
a gifted child. We might
of course not.
actually
Yeah,
need to
no,
check.
no, no. Either way, it's not. You can't make diagnosis just by, you
Right.
by
Okay.
checking.
Valerie just replied.
Yeah.
6 years old. 6 years old.
Okay, yeah, 6 years old. Okay, 6 years old.
Right.
Yeah, it's very young. You need to find out from the school, Valerie. Check with the teachers. What are they doing to help him?
Right.
And creative and read. So at 6 years old, is he? I'm not sure whether he's already reading. If he can read many words, is he already reading?
Mm-hmm.
He's already because if he's not reading, then it's going to be difficult for the school to place him in any level higher.
Right. Right.
Yeah, because
Okay.
at 6, if you are reading many words, you are at par with most of the kids.
Right. Okay. So Valerie, probably more informations on that, and as well as try to work with teachers as well to really understand the situation. I guess
Yes.
during Education Summit one, we have been really discussing with regards to the parent-teacher relationship and really finding out how the child is really performing in school.
Mhm.
Observations by teachers may be very different from what a parent actually observed the behavior of the
Absolutely.
child at home, right?
Absolutely. You see, as parents, we actually, because we have that emotional attachment with our children. So, like sometimes in my case, parents ask me directly, you know, is my child gifted? And unless I do a test, I can objectively tell. But when it's just a subjective consultation, it's difficult to tell for sure. But of course, based on the characteristics and all, you can tell. But sometimes I do have clients with children whom I'm quite sure based on my experience, the child is not in that gifted range, and
Right,
the child does not. And I don't want to say something I don't mean because you put undue pressure on the child. For me, my interest is the child more than anything else. So it's not fair for you to say something about the child and that then the parents may not be too happy and may be upset. But parents do not like to hear that. In my case, when they come to see me, usually they want to hear that their child is gifted. If they
right,
find yeah, so some parents become a little upset, and some parents actually do blame the teachers a lot, which is also not right because the teachers can just do so much. But at the same time, it's very good to have a good relationship with the teachers because you will know what the teacher is actually doing and how much the teacher is doing. As an adult, you can tell if the teacher is really doing their work well, or if your child may be, the issue may be with your child. And especially if you're in mainstream school, it's very difficult to expect the teacher to, give individual attention to all the students. It's actually very sad because they're not able to do that, and they don't have that kind of training. If you have a gifted child in a mainstream school, and generally, as far as I know, there's no training for the teachers. It
Right.
is actually very difficult. Parents will have to work very hard, but actually all you need is a good teacher. If you have a good teacher, a good principal, open minded, they may want to try to help the child, to the best of their ability,
Right.
without any kind of training. Maybe they may do some external reading on their own. They may consult some experts, or they may be able to help. So teacher means a lot, but parents, you have to be you have to be kind to the teachers as well.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
you
So
need to understand where they're coming from.
yeah, so I would like to really find out more of Dr. Inderbir's, to really dig in more of Dr. Inderbir's experiences when dealing with gifted children. What are some of the do's and don'ts when you're working with gifted children? But before that, let's take a couple more questions over here from Aziz Rajab. Wow. Okay, Aziz, Dr. Inderbir, he has been being through with the education series since number one all the way until now. So Aziz, thank you for the support and thank you for the question. His
Yeah,
question: do you need gifted education curriculum for gifted children? Okay, is there
very good
some
question.
customization that is required when you are teaching a gifted child? Hmm.
Absolutely, yes. You see, the curriculum for gifted children is actually quite different from that of, another child, and maybe an average child, or the child in the bigger number of children. Our education system, I mean, in most countries, the national education system actually caters for almost everyone. It caters for almost everyone, but it does not cater for special needs children and gifted children. Somehow, special needs children, they do have help. There is a curriculum for them which is prepared by, maybe KPM prepares that. But for gifted children, actually, they are the ones who do not have a curriculum. One way, I mean, there are a few ways actually to educate a gifted child. You give them you compact the curriculum and provide enrichment activities. So basically, and you can implement a multi-level or multi-dimensional curriculum where you differentiate the curriculum in order to address the differences in terms of the rate, the depth, and the pace of learning. So this will enable all students in the class to learn about a specific area by creating a project, but based on their own level. This you can do in mainstream school. And when you allow children to pursue independent projects, you will see, based on their own interest, you will see that gifted children will come up with something quite different from the other kids. And if there are gifted children in your school, you may need to consider team teaching, maybe a collaboration with other teachers. Have a teacher mentor. Let's say that child is in maybe standard 3, but doing math at standard 6 level. So maybe during math period, you pull out that child from the class and you get a teacher mentor who is already teaching like standard 6 maths to help that child. So don't hold the child behind, because it's not fair for the child. If you cannot get, and if there is no teacher available during that time, you actually give the child higher level work, so the child can sit aside and do his or her own work, and the rest can carry on with what you have prepared for the rest of the class.
Right. Okay. So based on what you just described over there, right, Dr. Inderbir, it's not so much of the actual curriculum, but it's more on the method or the way on how
Yeah,
education is being delivered to them.
yeah. So this is what we call differentiation curriculum, and also much deeper. There is actually quite a difference. There's a lot of independent projects, independent research work, because that is where these children shine. They will show that they are able to do a lot more than what is limited in the classroom. So which is why independent projects work very well for kids like this.
Okay.
So the curriculum is definitely different. You have to prepare a different curriculum for them. Maybe if you only have like 3 or 4 kids in the whole school whom you think may be advanced, you can actually have an IEP,
Right.
individual educational program.
Individual education.
Yeah,
Okay. So,
yeah,
so you got to remap the entire progress. So maybe 12
yeah.
chapters in 1 year for a normal child. So he might be going through 3 times as fast, depending on
Yes,
his
that
level.
is compacting. That's called compacting the curriculum. So yes, that is one way. Now the only issue is that there is no ready-made curriculum for them in mainstream schools. So usually, and teachers teachers who have not learned, who are not aware of giftedness, may not know what to do.
Right.
So by giving them more work, that is not going to help. If you give them more of the same kind of work, it is not going to be helpful. You have to give them enrich. You have to give them extension, work activities extension. So those are things that will help gifted children.
I see. So, so the same material, but coming in from different dimensions, different context, different
Yes,
perspective. Okay,
yes, yes, and higher level.
I
So
see.
there's variety. The subject is meaningful to the child. It's stimulating. It's challenging.
So in that way, for gifted child, right? For gifted child, based on your observation, do they naturally have the ability to grasp more abstract information, such as, let's say, for example, algebra? They're able to grasp the concept more efficiently if we compare it
Well,
to normal.
you see,
Normal.
those who are very good in maths, those who are considered gifted in maths, will be able to. But those who are more on the art side or verbally gifted, they may not. So it really depends on gifted doesn't mean they are good in every subject. So they may have specific areas that they have their gifts in, and it's very advanced compared to other children. So
Right.
that is where you have to tap them. Yes, they actually basically generally anything that they do, you will see that they are able to grasp quite
Right.
quickly. But in their areas of strength, they will be really advanced.
Mm, okay. So in a way, I guess back to the fundamental is to really understand your child, to understand the language that they really think in. Are they really thinking in terms of,
Yeah.
yeah, would you be able to break down on the different spectrum of it? Could it be in terms of they think in terms of pictures, in terms of abstract, in terms
No,
of,
that
yeah,
Yeah, you see that is the types of learners. Now they are the same as anyone else. You will have the same visual learner, auditory learner, kinesthetic learner. That's the same with any child. That it doesn't really matter that. Now we
right,
are talking about gifted children. We're talking about a higher level of education, educational match uh, that matches their ability. That means learning and ability needs to have a good match.
I see. Okay,
Basically, what we are doing is we are giving the best education for an individual child. So, for about 95, okay, let's say 95% of school going children, the national curriculum is a very good match for them.
right.
But then there will be about 5% who may need a different kind of a curriculum.
I see. Okay. If the analogy of if there's a fish, you have to first identify that. Okay, you can't determine that that is a fish yet. You gotta probably place it in the swimming pool and to find, hey, the guy is actually swimming very well. So
Yes,
you might have a trait of a gifted ability in swimming. In comparison to, okay, climbing a tree, probably a monkey from that perspective, is to really understand what
you can do
is
that.
ability, right?
So which is why the younger they are, as parents, expose them to as much material as possible. The more you expose, the more they will explore, and then you'll be able to tell if they are, where which way they may be going towards. and
Right.
and you need to realize that gifted children, they may get bored quite easily.
Right.
You get them to learn maybe what violin. After 4 months, they're like, "Oh, I don't want to learn this anymore."
Right.
It's
Right. Right.
okay. It's okay. You can't tell them, "Oh, I spent so much money because you really wanted to learn violin and now you don't want." It's okay. They're exploring, And you know what? They don't forget that it will be there, and you never know. Years later, they may come back to doing it. So allow them to kind of test anything they are doing is going to sharpen their mind, especially when you do music, any musical instrument that they play will sharpen their minds. Not only theirs, for any child.
Mm.
Musical instrument is actually very good for brain development,
Right.
especially for younger kids.
Okay. So, okay, next question over here, also from Michelle over here. Her question over here is that is there any test to diagnose gifted child below the age of 3 years old? Yeah. So, how young can you really start to diagnose a child whether they're gifted or not? Dr. Indigo?
You see, if you ask me, there are tests. I think below 6 years old, there are tests. There's a Wechsler's test, but it's not as widely used because the group of experts in gifted education, we believe that results are not very stable, and usually, when you test them later when they're 7 8 years old, there will be a difference. And the thing is that why do you want to test a child before, at 3 years? I think you should give a child the opportunity to grow on their own. The problem is the moment you think that, oh, my child is gifted, as parents, you have this in mind that, oh, you have to do this, you have to do that, without you being aware. I mean, as a parent, you want to do the best for your child, but without you being aware, you are actually putting undue pressure on your child.
Right.
And you should not do that, because never take their childhood from them. For a very young child up to 3 years old, what you really need to do is just as many activities as you can to sharpen their brain, to boost their brain power. I have that in my book.
I
Yeah.
see. Wow.
So
We're talking
because
about
between 0 to 3 is the most rapid stage of brain development. So this is when you can really, really help your child, regardless of whether your child is gifted or not. As long as your child does not have any severe brain problem, your child will be able to do quite well. So
right.
0 to 3, the brain is rapidly growing, so that is exactly when you need to expose your child to as much material as possible.
Right. Yeah. And I think that this does not only apply to gifted children. We
Any
talk
child,
about
any
the
child.
yeah, we talk about the exploration. It should apply to all children as well to
Yes,
be able to allow
yes.
them to have different experiences, different learning, different skill sets. Yeah,
True, very true. In fact, a lot of gifted education program is also applicable to children who are achieving. It's just that they may not be able to come up with as deep work as a gifted child would be able to, but they're just as good for most of the children, which is why I think gifted education program, they actually they challenge children a lot. So regardless of whether your child is gifted, if your child any child would enjoy challenges. Why is it that children are just so stuck on gadgets, and they stare at their phones, or they play a lot of games? It's because they're addicted, because it kind of challenges them to move to a different and a higher level. Although I don't think it's a very good thing to allow your child to spend hours and hours on gadgets.
right,
It's challenging for them. So if you can help them have education in a similar manner, it's very helpful. They would be challenged for sure, any child for that matter.
right. Okay, so those of you out there, if you have any questions for Dr. Inderbir, please do comment down below or click on the link where you can directly chat with us on the stage right now as well. So we'd be happy to have you over here. So, right, I would just like to streamline down into your experience when working with parents with gifted child, right? So, what are the common challenges that you always see? So, I want to break it down into two perspectives, coming from the parents or the teacher's perspective, as well as coming from the students or the child's perspective, right? So let's zoom in down into the parents or the teacher's perspective. What are the common challenges that you always see that might not be so conducive in bringing up a gifted child in your experience, Dr. Inderbir?
was to focus too much on academic grades. Actually, that's the one and main challenge that I face when I see my clients. They expect high IQ to translate into good grades. Now, when the education doesn't challenge the child, doesn't stimulate the child, it's going to be very difficult to expect the child to go a lot further. So, so giving the child like tuitions after tuition, the child will do it because, like I have to do it. My parents are paying for it. I have to do it. But
Right.
you will see that these children, when they are in, say, secondary school, they may burn out. And once they burn out, it's very difficult to get them back on track.
I see.
So, yeah. So, if you ask me, I think a happy child matters more than an achieving child. A happy child will be a child who's happier learning and who will eventually achieve. So don't stress your child out when they're very young, especially during the primary years, because the worst thing a parent can do is to take childhood away from your child.
Okay.
These days, a lot of children who have what I call tiger moms, they tend to put overdue pressure on children, and so much so that the child is so busy, the parents micromanage the child, that the child is not able to think for himself or herself, not able to make decisions because they're overly dependent on the parents. Okay, you come back from school, okay, you do this tuition, that tuition, this enrichment, that enrichment. The poor child is like, has no time. You children need time for themselves. They need time to go out there and play on their own, enjoy doing what they do. And that's how a child will develop.
Right.
That is a
Okay.
problem. Yes.
Okay, so let's say if we were to walk into a gifted child's world of understanding, right? In your vast experience working with gifted children, could you describe to us more about how does a gifted child normally express themselves when you are talking with them or when you're communicating with them? How are they really like in a daily in the day-to-day activity in how they communicate their world and their perception to you? Would you be able to describe more about that to us?
Actually, they're just like any other kid. It's just that what they talk about. You will find that firstly they use a much higher level of vocabulary. They use words not to show off. They are not trying to show off, but it's just because they read a lot, so they're able to. Their vocabulary is actually very rich. So they tend to use higher level.
Sophisticated language.
Yeah, more sophisticated, and you will find that they talk about deeper issues. They tend to be very concerned about even world affairs. You see now that COVID is happening, they're very concerned about it. They think of ways to contribute or to do something about it. Maybe other kids may just not do anything, like okay, like, but they actually get involved in world matters,
Right.
especially when it affects the nation.
Okay.
And yeah, pretty much they are, they are more like a mini adult when you see them, and they can, and some of them actually may appear to have extremely high energy levels, it's which is why some of them are actually mistaken for having ADHD,
Right.
but
Right.
some of them actually do have ADHD and may be gifted. Some just have ADHD. Okay, some are only gifted but they are misdiagnosed as having ADHD.
Right.
So these children actually, their mind works. They think of too many things at a time. They'll be asking you a question. You barely finish complete your answer. The next question of a maybe different subject comes along because their mind is constantly raising. Constantly racing. It's like too many things is coming on all the time. So sometimes it's very difficult for them to focus. When they get older they better focus, but when they're very young they don't know what's happening, and they just allow it to happen because they don't know how to control the thoughts.
Right.
So
Right.
this, you can tell when you talk to them.
So the rule of thumb is that probably if they are 10 years old, just add 5 or 10 years. Speak to them as if you're talking to a
Okay, I
15
mean
year
minimum 13 years old. about 13 years old.
Okay.
Right. 10, if you add a 10-year-old talking like a 20-year-old, that we call profoundly gifted. Now,
Right.
those who are very highly gifted, they may have other issues. You know, even international school may not be suitable. They probably may need to be homeschooled because the kind of education they need may be really very different from anyone else.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So, coming up, the next time I would really like to speak to Dr. Inderbir much more about her authored book. So she just recently published a book called "The Secrets to Raising a Smarter Child." So we'll dive in much more on the contents of the book shortly in a while. But before that, let's look into the next question from from Patty Scherer. So my daughter was tested gifted at 10 years old. Academically, her maths level is high in school. Reading level is in college level. Wow. So she's 12 years old now, going to 8th grade middle school. Based on her state, she's in 10th grade. So she's she's early entrance kindergarten, but schools don't have resource for her now in middle school. So do we need to push her up to high school? Find other ways. I'm worried pushing her up will hurt her emotionally and mentally. So there's the dilemma of a parent whereby
Yeah.
should push her up, or if I push
Yeah.
her up fast, will it cause more stress to my child? Yeah.
Usually when they're very young and you do acceleration, it's not too bad, because they can still mingle around with kids who are 1-2 years older. But when they're already in middle school, and daughter, a girl in middle school, usually that's when you start having a lot of hormonal issues, and uh, your body is changing. So it may not be a good idea to push her up to high school level unless she is ready. That again, I mean, it of course depends on the child. If she makes friends easily, she is very sociable, then you may want to talk about it with the school. Otherwise, I don't know if getting her in another school is an option, or talking to the school to help with some kind of resource for her. I'm sure there may be other kids, who may be similar and may need some help in that very school. If the school really don't have resources, I think the best thing to do is to try to look for another school that has a better match with her educational abilities, because you're actually holding her back if she remains in that school. And what will happen is that she will get used to doing much less than what she's capable of, and that's not going to be a good thing. And she's very advanced from what
Right.
you mentioned here. She's really very advanced, so she really needs a proper education system, a differentiated curriculum for her to thrive further. You really need to speak to someone in the school. And if,
Right.
if they are not going to do anything, she really is wasting her time. You know, I know it's going to be really hard, but try to look for, another school. Or at this stage, homeschooling, I'm not sure if you want to homeschool, but that may be very stressful. It's good. She's already in regular school, and she's probably quite used to having the school environment. So talk to the authority in school and see what can be done before making any decisions. Yeah.
Okay. So I guess from this factor as well is to really understand from I guess from here what Miss Patty is articulating over here. It's much more on the academic side of things.
Yes.
Also
Yeah.
to really find out and understand more from the child's perspective. Are they really happy in the school? Are they finding themselves challenged in school as well as
Mhm.
are they really having fun and having a good time in her current situation in school? Right.
Yes. Sometimes the school just may not know what to do. So as a parent, if you know what to do with your child, you can help the school. You can help them, like maybe direct them to certain sites to help your child. They may be able to have a pull-out program, as I mentioned earlier, where your daughter can go to a higher grade, maybe only in math, and the rest of the subject go back to her, the same grade. Yeah,
Right.
her current
So,
grade. Yeah.
Patty, I guess from the chat, we might not be able to put in much more context on this, but shortly in a while, we'll be sharing Dr. Inderbir's email, where if any of you out there who has any questions with regards to gifted children, right, please do email her with any follow-up questions on that as well, right?
I
So,
may take some time to respond.
yeah. So,
Next week is going to be a terrible week for me. So.
right. And by the way, just a sneak peek as well. Dr. Inderbir will actually be joining us in our upcoming Education Summit season number 2, right? Which will be happening next month. So for those of you who really like what Dr. Inderbir is sharing over here, she will be sharing much more in depth with regards to the entire understanding of gifted children, as well as the structure on how you should actually work with when dealing with a gifted child during the Education Summit on the 22nd and the 23rd of August. So please stay tuned in the Malaysian Education Summit webpage over here. So I would just like to dive into your currently you just authored a book called The Secrets to Raising a Smarter Child. So could
Yeah.
you tell us more about this book, what this book is all about, and what can we actually learn from this book over here?
Well, actually, this book is not for gifted children alone. It's for any child, basically from birth to the age of maybe 10, 12. So my focus is how to the kind of activities you can do to actually boost brain power in a child. Okay, there are many sections to the book. I think there are 10 chapters. Maybe Jay, do you want to share the slide?
Uh, give us some time over here, then we'll
Oh,
bring up the slide.
okay, okay, okay. Yeah. So I started from pre-pregnancy. So if you're planning to have a child, what you may want to do to make sure that you are fit as a fit, healthy as a parent, you emotionally sound and intellectually sound as well. So I start from pre-pregnancy. First, I explain what intelligence is all about, and then the most crucial stage when the child is born, what you can do once the child is born, the kind of activities. And what I make sure is I try to, this is not only for mothers, fathers are also involved. Okay, so it's for both the parents, either one, whoever has the time to do it, you do. There are many activities, many activities, and these activities are actually evidence based. It's proven in research to help children be, we call it be smarter, but it's actually to sharpen their brain so that they become better thinkers. So what I make sure is that every activity has some level of family bonding, because this is mainly a parenting book, and the child is always happy, because for me a happy child is a learning child, and I think that's a very crucial thing that parents need to be aware of. And of course, there's one chapter on smart parenting. If you want your child to be smart, you need to learn to be smart as well. And it's not that you don't know, it's just that sometimes we kind of, you know, we, we need to, get a little of a small bit of a knock on our head for us to remember, hey, yeah, I should be doing that. I shouldn't be doing this. So a lot of do's and don'ts. I talk about gadgets as well. Um, Educational toys, what is good, what may not be very helpful, the do's and don'ts when it comes to gadgets, and also about school, smart schooling, what to look for when you choose a school. If you have the option to choose a school, what are the things that you may need to look out for, and as a parent, what you need to do. Yeah, so mainly those are the areas that I covered in this book.
Right. So if we let's say if we were to break it down into the top 3 things as a parent, right, on what you should actually do when working with your children, what would you say one of the top 3 things that as a parent you absolutely must really pay attention into these top 3 factors over here?
Well, the first is start early, as early as possible. Of course, I believe that nothing is too late, but the earlier you start, the better. Because your child, when you start late, your child gets used to the kind of life they've had. So it may be a little tough for you to deviate from that. So as early as you can, expose your child to as much material as possible. Yeah. And oh yeah, three. The next is to make sure you don't give any undue pressure to your child, because make sure your child has a childhood. A childhood is very, very essential for any child. Okay, an example is I used to be the school psychologist with a school in Singapore here. It's a Raffles school. It's actually the top school in Singapore. Many gifted kids there. And I did interview one student. I interview who's like the top student. She is so intelligent. It's amazing. I asked her, I said, what was your childhood like? She just looked at me. She said, homework, homework, homework. So
Oh,
it broke my heart. It really broke my heart. And she comes from a affluent family,
right,
very well to do and very affluent. But it's so sad to think that a child is saying that this child has been robbed of her childhood. She does everything. She does yachting. She plays golf. She her timetable is like so full. And last but not least, regardless of what your child is, whether your child is gifted or not, or smart or whatever, you really need to show your child that you love your child. Now, love is an amazing thing for a child. Your child has no one else. You're all they have. Okay, you need to love your child, regardless of what your child is. And just by loving your child, showing your child that, you're special, I need you, your child will actually do better. A loved child always does better in the long run.
right. Okay. Say for example, Dr. Inderbir, from your experience, I guess you have children yourself, right? Like
Yes.
from last what we have discussed with how in terms of your observation and your experience in raising your own child, what kind of way in how academically wise as well as from skills wise, how would you normally what are the kind of things that you normally do to really cultivate their ability to advance in school as well as to heighten their ability to be much more of an achieving student, if I may say that from that perspective.
I'm embarrassingly, let me say that my kids are not like top students. They are doing well enough, but you know I think I did make some mistakes, which I tried to rectify in my book. So I did not do everything my book says. Trial and error. I did use my kids as guinea pigs for a lot of things. As a parent, actually, I'm quite I'm quite laid back. I think I do tell them off. I nag just like everyone else, all other mothers. But I've never pressured them. And the other unfortunate thing, I wouldn't say unfortunate, fortunate or unfortunate, is that because my husband's job requires him to be posted abroad. So we have been out of the country for many many years, and because the company pays for everything, so obviously we put them in good international schools. And so they have you know they've got good education. Their knowledge is a lot, is very very broad and quite deep, and they actually enjoy going to school, which I'm very happy about. uh, but what I find is that my kids are, I find that they have been very privileged, and that privilege takes something away from you. What I have when I was when I was growing up, because I come from very humble background. I'm from Kluang, Johor. I don't know if
Oh,
any of you are from there. Yeah, it's a very small town in the state of Johor. So in Malay we call it budak kampung. So I'm pretty much like that. So my dad always told us that I've got no money to send you anywhere for education. You guys, you have to get scholarship. You have to work really hard, and that is what we did. My siblings are all medical doctors, and um, we all of us, we kind of, we had scholarships to move further. And I think that is mainly because we have the drive, the motivation to make something out of our life. Unfortunately, today the kids, I feel the kids are lacking that. Even my kids, you keep telling them like, hey, you gotta work, you gotta date, you gotta get results, blah blah blah. But there is no drive for them to do better. They feel that, hey, chill, I'm okay with the way things are. The group today, they're very different from what they used to be previously. So, and you need to, as parents, you need to understand that you you should not force them into something that they may not be interested in, because this is what they are now. Eventually they will do what they want to do, and
Right.
very difficult for us to, we can't control them as much as we can. So as parents, I think the best that we can do is actually to love and support our children as much as we can. I think that means more than anything else. Yes.
Okay. So I would just like to bring up the book that Doctor was discussing about from here. So this is how the book actually looks like. So the secrets to raising a smarter child. So Dr. Inderbir, so how if I'm a parent or if I'm a teacher, where can I actually get access to the book over here?
Actually, I do. You can go on Amazon. You can get it from there. In Malaysia, I have a friend of mine who's actually helping to sell some of the books. I mean, I'm meant to make frequent trips to Malaysia, but unfortunately, things are things are just not happening at this point in time. So that's one way. The other way, you may want to write. You can write to me, and I can tell you where to go to get the copies. But
Right.
they're very limited in Malaysia. I may probably need to, send over from here.
Okay. So
But
so
if
I
you
guess
go to
with
Amazon, it's there.
right, Amazon as well as from the email from there, right? So okay, so within the limited time that we actually have over here, I see that there's a lot of chapters over here. Maybe if we can pick some of the gold nuggets out from the author herself with regards to the different topics over here. Something that really caught on my mind is the chapter number 6, which is educational games, smart toys, and gadgets. Right? Would you be able to highlight a little bit sneak peek about what this chapter is all about with regards to educational games as well?
Well, basically, I talk a lot about the do's and don'ts. I mean, old-fashioned educational games that I had gone through. I mean, of course, the kids today, the only thing they go through is gadgets. I don't think, I think some kids may not even know, what board games are really like. So board games are actually quite good because it actually helps you with your, fine motor skill. Where, say, you play carom, or Monopoly helps you with your thinking. So I give examples of games that, I don't specifically tell you what to get.
Right.
I don't want to endorse anything, but at the same time, I tell you what to look out for in games. And smart toys like, transformer, that's called a smart toys that you can, turn around, those. And of course, gadgets. um, Please do not think that gadgets are all bad. They are not. And in today's world, you cannot tell your child that, oh, you cannot play any games. I think it's okay to allow them to play games, maybe during a school day, maybe an hour a day. It's okay because everyone else is doing it, and you don't want your child to be left behind, because that will actually impact on your child's self-esteem. When everyone else has this game, knows how to play this game, and games are not that bad. It's only bad when they get addicted. So you need to draw a line there and make sure they don't go overboard. That is, as parents, it's really your duty. And make sure every evening they go to the playground, and they need to do some physical activities.
Right.
Children today lack physical fitness, the way I see it. Get them into some kind of sporting activities. I think it's really, really helpful for them in the long run. Yeah. So
Right.
that's pretty much the do's and don'ts.
Right. Okay,
Yeah.
another chapter over here that really caught my attention would be chapter number 4, which is how to sharpen your child's mind. So, would you be able to comment more on this?
I actually have a whole talk on this. I don't mind sharing it. Usually, when I was promoting my book, I give a talk um, on this, how to boost brain power. Yeah, so I, I wouldn't mind sharing this on this chat series because it takes about more than an hour for me to talk about it all.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so if we were to take a step back in towards sharpening the mind, right? How would you define sharpening a mind? What definition would you actually put in with regards to the keyword sharpening the mind?
Yeah, actually doing anything that will make your brain work harder. So for example, when you see, music is amazing. Music is amazing, and it's not only classical music. Any kind of music is good for you, for the child. So when you listen to music, there are, the frequency that comes around, it actually helps with your brain. Now what is even better is playing a musical instrument, because you're combining the a lot of dimensions, the precision of finger movements, um, you know the pitch, the emotional dimension. So there's so many things combined together when you play a musical instrument, regardless of what instrument you play. It doesn't have to be a specific instrument. Any instrument is fine. But actually learning how to play music, it actually really develops the brain, especially when you're young. And now, not every child is going to be interested in musical instruments. So, please do not force your child to play musical instrument. Just, oh, I want your brain to be smarter. Now, you have to learn the piano. No choice, you must. Or learn the violin. No choice. It's not like that. But, as long as they're doing some kind of it, it's going to be very good. Yeah. So, that's one of it. And
Yeah,
the
I guess
other would
thinking about
be,
music, right? We talk about the story of Einstein. I heard of a story that he used to bring one of his friend to watch him play the violin. So
he's an established violinist.
yeah, yes,
He's an established violinist. At the same time, he's so good in physics. So so that's this left brain, right brain. Actually there's no such thing as you are only left brain or only right brain. Our brain, the both hemispheres of the brain works together. Actually, so doesn't mean that oh, you are left brain, you are good in this, right brain, you are good in that. It's nothing like that. And remember, between male, there's no such thing as jobs for male or female. When we are born, our brain structure, whether you're male or female, is the same. So a female can do any job that a male can do. A male can do any job that a female can do. I'm talking about careers. Okay, so please do not assume that, oh, you're a girl, so these are the jobs for you. Or you're a guy, so these are the jobs for you. Okay, so the brain is identical when we are born. So it's
right,
what you mold them into
yeah,
that makes the difference.
right. It's more of like a high power machine, but if you do not put it into good use, so the high power means nothing if there's no output.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes, yes, that's it.
All right.
And of course,
Okay. So another question from Aziz Rajab over here. So I guess we covered a little bit on this. What is the IQ of a gifted child or student from that?
on a standardized test, you need to get 130 and above. I'm not talking about the free test you do on the internet and all. That you
Uh-huh.
can get 150.
Right, right.
So usually, it's a 130 is the cutoff point. So if you get 130, you are considered within the 2% of the population.
Okay, right.
Yeah. So
So
the
so
higher
in
it is, of course, the further it deviates from the mean,
Mhm.
um, the more different you will be compared to the others. And the curriculum that's required is also going to be quite different the
Right.
further you are from the mean. So if you've got an IQ about 150 over, then you probably need to be homeschooled.
Okay.
Or that may be the best option for you if
Right.
school doesn't work. Yeah.
So, Dr. Inderbir, the correlation between the level of IQ and a gifted children, is it, does it mean that a gifted children usually have a very high level of IQ in that
Yes.
manner?
On a standardized test, yes. But if you ask me, I would not, totally depend on that alone, because there are some children who've got a learning disability, and that will actually, in, let's say someone has a verbal learning disability, what will happen is that it will pull down their scores in certain areas, let's say in verbal comprehension. So, and that will skew the results, all the results. The thing is that if you know about intelligence and you know how to read the scores, then you will be able to tell that this child may have an issue. And if your child is highly talented, say in music, so, and you give an IQ test, usually the child will do quite well if the child is highly talented, but there is a chance that the child may not do very well. So, unless you give the child an intelligence test that relates to music, now I don't, I'm not even sure if anything like that exists. But yes, please do not use that number to dictate what your child's life will be, because
Right.
it is a number just to guide you further. It may be useful for the school to say, hey, okay, because school would need it, it is just an objective form of you could call it credential,
Right.
for a school to see or to decide whether to place your child at a higher level, or in a pull-out program, to do a differentiation curriculum. But otherwise, it is just a number. If you don't really need to test your child. If you think that testing is not necessary, you don't even need to test your child. Yeah.
Right.
Don't give too much attention to that number.
Yeah. I
Parents do.
yeah, I
Parents do.
think a lot of
Some
parents are
even frame the result. I've
right,
known some parents to frame the result, and
right,
okay, no,
right.
you
Because
don't
we
do
were
that.
talking about a brain, right? In terms of a brain is sort of like a ongoing development development structure. So whereby as the time goes on, depending on what kind of input that you actually provide to that structure, it will be able to develop organically as well. So it doesn't mean that
Yes,
right now it's going to be permanent for the rest of the life, right?
exactly.
Yeah.
Experience helps a lot. You may not have, like, I know of, I know of some friends who did not do very well in school during school time, but now, they really doing something really out of the box, very different. They're probably highly creative, but of course, at that time, my time, no one recognized. So you see, it's very possible. But a child who is happy, a child who's got a good childhood, who is happy, who's got leadership, leadership qualities, I think will thrive very well.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So just what you need to know is there is no never say there is no solution, or never tell your child you're a gone case or what. There is always a way to do things, and getting high scores is not the only way to do well in life, or to be, I think, to do well in life means to be a happy and satisfied person in life. I think that is actually doing well in life.
Right. Okay, speaking of success results over here, right? Dr. Inderbir, based on the many years that you have been working with different clients as well as children, right? Are there any specific successful case studies or examples, right, that you have observed that, hey, this parent is actually doing a tremendous job bringing up a gifted child in her own way and leading on towards a very successful future for the children? Any examples that you could share with us from your vast amount of experience?
The thing is that the kids I know who have grown up, like, from the time I started doing it, they barely, like, maybe 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, the oldest ones. So they're just starting college, and some, but I think most of them are doing, I've not seen anyone who's not doing well
Hmm.
as such. So um okay, there are some who have not done well, but that I I kind of think, parents have a part to play.
Right,
You know,
right.
too much pressure to.
So
Hmm.
those kids who have done really well in that
Mhm.
case, right? What are the observations that you have seen coming from the parents on the way on how they develop or work with their children from there?
Right. Firstly, I think the parents actually allow the child to follow their passion. You know, there's no like, oh, those days I remember my time, you gotta be in science class, you should not be in art, you gotta be in this, you not that. And so it's very different today. And although there are some parents who are still who still have that traditional mind, but they actually allow children to follow their passion and they do it with their child. So I think that's actually amazing. And they allow the child to have their own childhood. There is a good degree of freedom that the child has. They allow children to decide for themselves. So, when children decide for themselves, they actually take accountability of what happens. So I think that really makes a lot of difference.
Right.
The home atmosphere is amazing in how it shapes, molds the child. You can, as parents, you can actually do a lot. Mm.
So in that case, it doesn't necessarily mean that only for gifted children. As a supportive parent, it applies to
Any. Yes, I'm talking generically for
right.
any child. It doesn't have to be for gifted children. For any child, for that matter, you support your child. You see what your child is good in. If your child is really good in art, but you're not very happy that your child is going to do art, um, I think you may need to tone down a little bit and try to understand your child's passion.
Okay.
Things are
So
very different today than what it used to be when I was growing up. I think it was like generations away. You as young parents, parents of young children, it's very different for you as well with what's happening right now. So we need to go with the flow.
okay. Right. Okay. Before we really wrap things up over here, we got very short amount of time. So if you have any final questions for Dr. Inderbir, please do comment down below. So Dr. Inderbir, so in that case, right, for gifted child and for teachers working with gifted children, right, from their perspective, in really mending off or to really bring on the relationship to enhance the ability for uh, a teacher and a parent to really work well with a gifted child, right? What are your key suggestions that you would really give parents or teachers out there on the ability to enhance their level of working together with a gifted child in order to ensure that they have number one, a happy childhood, and number two, a very uh, effective and a very helpful assist that can be derived from a different working environment that a parent or teacher can provide to the gifted child.
I think first you need to recognize that they have gifts. I mean, they are they have similar characteristics and traits of a gifted child. Once you are able to identify that they have that, then you can work towards helping them achieve the goals that you may think would be good for them. So the most important thing is to to have a variety of educational material, all sorts of material, and help expose to them as much as possible. um, they may need an accelerated curriculum, a curriculum that is meaningful, and most of all, at the topmost, it has to be challenging and stimulating to them. Once you have all those factors, I think you're on the way to doing some good work with gifted children.
Okay, and for those of if let's say the child is currently in a normal education system, would you say it's entirely up to the parents to really bring on the understanding and the empathy for the child by itself?
Yes, the parent has a very heavy burden there, because if the school is not going to do much, and maybe it may be hard for you to put your child in maybe a private school or an international school. I think as parent, you really need to work very hard to help your child be the best that they can be. So you may need to be aware, you may need to do a lot of reading, maybe even take up a course. I think they have some online courses from Australia. You can just do a bit of, a search, and you will find that there are some, I don't know if they're free online courses, but there may be. So as a parent, equip yourself with enough knowledge in gifted education. And the other thing you can do is you can actually join a support group, parental support group. And of course, I would suggest the National Association for Gifted Children,
Right.
Malaysia. Try to it's voluntary. So, of course, if you join, you probably have vested interest. And don't just join and wait for things to happen. You can be proactive, and you can actually come up with, something to help your child and a few other children get together and do some things together. I think they have had some interesting activities
Right.
over the past years. Yeah.
So it's a National Association of Gifted Children.
Yes, yes.
I see.
You
All right.
can
That
do a
would be really
Google.
useful to
There is
really
a
work.
Facebook page as well. I
Okay.
think we have a Facebook page, or you can just do a search on them. They've got their website, and you can write into them.
Right.
You can be
So
members.
it works
Without,
really, yeah, it works really well if parents are able to work and to really communicate with other parents with
and
children.
trust me, once you know other parents who have similar issues as you, sharing is the best thing that can happen. You can share what is happening with your child, and you hear them out. And you actually, it actually helps you solve a lot of problems without even seeing any expert or any professional. You just talk to one another, and you will find that, hey, this might just work with my child, and it may not. So the more uh, similar minded parents that you meet, parents with gifted children, you can actually gain a lot. So a good support network for gifted children is actually very important.
Yeah. So I guess education is all about adaptation and anticipation as well, right? So
Absolutely.
adaptation, whereby you are looking from the child's response on whether if you're doing something correct, and you really adapt as you go along the way, and
Yes,
also at
adapt
the
and
same time,
accommodate.
yes, as well as to be able to anticipate what lies beyond the road down ahead. 10 years from
Yes.
now, how should I really do in order to really effectively influence my child?
Yeah. But
So
be flexible. You have goals. Of course, you need to have some goals. You need to have plans. But as things change, children change, and things change, circumstances change. A lot of things can happen. So as a parent, be flexible and accept that. Okay, now this is not working very well. Let's try something else.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. So before we wrap this up, I just wanted to find out current works by Dr. Inderbir as of currently right now 2020. What are your current projects and what are you currently working on so that if any of the parents or teachers out there that may want to find out more about Dr. Inderbir, they'll be able to find out more about you.
Well, I would like to do teacher training in gifted education, but unfortunately, things have not been going so well. I did training for Maktab Science Mara, teachers for Maktab Science Mara. I
Okay.
think the year before last. Yeah, I vaguely
All right.
remember. So and I, what I feel is that in Malaysia there is a lack of training, and I feel bad for children who are gifted and who are neglected eventually. And, nobody knows that they actually need a different education system, a higher, more challenging education system. So it's really sad. I've developed a course I call it Brain Stretcher. It's actually critical thinking for 2 to 4 year olds.
Okay.
But yeah, I mean,
Right.
unfortunately, again, because of COVID, this year hasn't started off too well. From February onwards, a lot of my work had to be on hold. Let's hope that things get better. And so for the time being, I'm actually just doing a lot of the university work, teaching. I've got more classes to teach now. Yeah, on my consulting work, actually, it's been affected a lot. I think
Okay.
parents are still not used to the idea of remote consulting. And
Right.
of course, IQ test, I can't do it remotely. There's no way I can do it remotely.
Right.
Parents prefer face to face for consulting. So,
Right.
but
Right. So yeah.
as I said, I go with the flow. So I'm okay. Whatever happens, I take life as it is. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So before we really wrap things off, so any final conclusions or any word of advice from Dr. Inderbir to parents out there who are currently working with gifted children?
Listen to them, understand them, help them, expose them to as much as possible, and above all, love them for what they are. I
Okay,
think that's
so
very
yeah,
important.
so once again, thank you so much, Dr. Inderbir, for joining in with the EduChat series. So for those out there, if you really love what Dr. Inderbir has been sharing on today, please do share this video out to any of your parents and teachers out there that you feel that they might actually benefit from the session today as well. And also, Dr. Inderbir will be joining us in the Edu Summit 2, happening next month, where she'll be sharing more on the topic of gifted children. So do not miss her sessions up uh, in the next month to come as well. And also, during the session earlier, we have been discussing on towards her book, which I'm bringing off on the screen right now, which is called "The Secrets of to Raise to Raising a Smarter Child." Right, so where you can learn all about becoming a better parent or a better teacher yourself. And we definitely feel that this book over here would benefit you, no matter if you're a teacher, if you're an educator, or a parent yourself as well. All right. So, Dr. Inderbir, it has been a pleasure having you in our EduChat series as well, and we hope to have you to discuss more about the topic of child education in future sessions to come. All right. So,
Thank you, Jay, and yeah, and thank you to the listeners for making time to listen to this EduChat series. Yeah, thank you.
all right. Okay. So thank you, Dr. Inderbir. So reluctantly, we have to part ways for now. So we look forward to having you in future, and we wish you all the success in your
Thank you
future
so much.
endeavors as well.
Thank you, and all the best to everyone out there.
All right. Okay. So there was Dr. Inderbir. Wow, so many insights that I've actually learned from the sharing session just now. 14 different traits that she have actually shared with regards to a gifted child. And towards our conversation, even before the EduChat series, right, there have been more and even more discussions that we have actually gone into, which we're not able to really bring it on forth form towards here. But if you want to find out more about Dr. Inderbir's work, more questions for her, be sure to email her on any questions that you might have with regards to gifted children, as well as from the childhood education perspective as well. So, Dr. Inderbir, from my experience discussing with her, she is a really experienced educator, which has all of the tricks and tools, right, that you are able to utilize from her repertoire to become a better parent and a better educator yourself as well, right? So, as I've mentioned earlier as well, please do not miss out on our upcoming education summit series, which will be happening next month, where we will be having close to about 16 over different educators stemming from different education backgrounds. A few sneak peeks from here. Topics that we'll be covering will be coming from special needs education, right? So that's number one in terms of the visually impaired, ADHD, mentally challenged students. We will be having speakers that will be addressing all about special needs education. That's number one. Number two, we will be focusing more onto the mental side of things, the mental health issue of educator, as well as coming from students as well, which is a very hot topic right now. Presuming MCO has caused a lot of parents, teachers, as well as students to be extremely stressed out during this challenging period of time. So there will be speakers that will be highlighting on that as well. And also, finally, the third topic that will be covered in the Edu Summit number two will be in terms of the advancement of education, right? So we have speakers that will be coming in to share with us on the cutting edge technologies as well as the different education approaches that is available in our country, and how you as an educator or a parent can learn from that and to be able to adapt it into your own classroom as well as working with your own children as well. So be sure, stay tuned in the Malaysia Education Summit uh, Facebook page over here. If you haven't liked it, please like it. We will be having more of this information in our coming weeks to come, right? So if you have thoroughly enjoyed the session for today, we will be having education chat series like what we are doing right now every Saturday on 10:30 a.m. So we will be announcing our next speaker. So a little bit sneak peek for the speaker for next week. She will be sharing more on the humanistic value side of education, right? So simple example would be in terms of a child, how do you develop them morally as a human being to have um, to nurture them in terms of humanistic value, right? So we will talk more about that in our EduChat series next week, Saturday, 10:30 a.m. And finally, to those of you who are tuning in all the way from 10:30 a.m. right until now. So it has been 2 hours. Thank you so much for joining in with the EduChat series session for today. And I hope that this session has enlightened and to be able to provide us with more insight into the different aspect of gifted child. And I hope that it has been beneficial with all of us over here. All right. So signing off from the EduChat series for today. We hope to see you next week, 10:30 a.m. with our next EduChat series to come. So we are coming on to the EduChat series number 8, and we will look forward to have you next week. And we hope you have a great weekend, and I will see you next Saturday. Take care, everyone, and signing off.